and Peace, or What Has Communism Got, by Moses David, written April the 16th, 1973, letter number 255. In War and Peace, Tolstoy is looking for an answer. It's a picture of the human soul searching for an answer, and all of the experiences through which he goes, whether it is school or love or war or peace, show that none of these satisfy him, and that none of these is the answer. You feel these experiences with him. It is a picture of a young man going through life looking for the answer, and shows all of his experience in life in which he does not find the answer. It shows the futility of war, the futility of life, the futility of peace, the futility of the kind of government they had. It also points out the futility of their religion, that in spite of all their religiosity, their religion is hypocritical. The faith of the people was sincere, and they were honest and sincere in their faith, but they were putting their faith in a religious system that was corrupt and hypocritical. The poor people weren't to be blamed, but they had their faith in something that was false. Communism cannot help but identify God with the religious systems who were supposed to be giving them God. So when they become embittered against the religious system, they usually become embittered against God, because they say, if that's what God's like, I don't want anything to do with him. It shows the hypocrisy of the priests and the nobility who can go so piously to church and then mow down the poor. This communist anti-God propaganda has to be subtle. They handled Nicholas and Alexandra the same way. They have to identify God with the corrupt religious system, or a corrupt religionist. It shows the sincerity of the people, but shows they were sincerely wrong, because their religion wasn't doing them any good, so God wasn't doing them any good. He wasn't saving their people or them from starvation and the brutality of war. Tolstoy was seeking. He could see the good, but then he could see the evil. It was an extremely fair picture of life. But having taken you through all these experiences and shown you how evil men usually triumph in a capitalist society, whether economically or politically, he infers the failure of religion and therefore God. That's your subtle punch right there when he asks, if evil men can work together to get what they want, why cannot good men work together for what they want? But all the time he was seeking, did he ever find the answer? And if so, in what? He went down and worked with the poor and became a peasant. He was looking for a purpose in life. Did he ever find it? He learned compassion for the poor by giving up everything, but where was the solution to poverty? It's summed up like this. His answer to man is man, not God. If man could get it together, he could solve his own problems. That's the whole principle of communism, and the whole principle of the devil from the Garden of Eden on, that man himself, if he could get it together, could solve all his own problems. Don't just let these bad teachers and religious leaders and politicians do it, but you can answer your own problems if you'll get busy and fight. How smart they are to show that movie in all-night sessions that only young people would attend. 8 solid hours of strong conditioning, indoctrination, and propaganda. Communism preaches, you are the answer to your own problems. You just need to get it together and start fighting for it against your evil rulers. But, as it so often proves, as long as the heart of man is still evil, as soon as they get control, they're just another set of evil rulers. They can never have perfect love and compassion for the poor without God's love, because the heart of man is still evil. Man's final world government is going to be the most perfect government the self-righteous heart of man could ever contrive, the most idealistic, the most fair, the most compassionate, the most equal, the most sharing. It will be like trying to have Christianity without Christ. So then, of course, they will see it needs a Christ, a Superman, to make this possible. So the devil himself, once again, as he did in the beginning, will try to be the world's God, to show they can do it if they have him as their own God. But because he's not the right God, in the long run, it won't work. The movie showed that the Russians don't really hate the people. They really have compassion for the poor soldiers and victims of the system. It's their leaders who are the monsters. It shows how they tried to deceive the people into thinking they were being victorious when they were going down in ignominious defeat. The leaders didn't dare tell the people they were losing. The main character, Andrei, who was really the personality of Tolstoy, never really found the answer, but his idea was, if the people get it together and overthrow the evil, we may be able to find the good, the answer. We don't really know what the good is, but we're bound to find it if we get together and overthrow the evil. You must sometimes see the film called The Adventurers. It was American capitalistic propaganda against the South American revolutions, showing how each new revolution becomes the next tyranny. This is the principle of anarchy. If we can just destroy the existing system, we could find the good, or it will create itself. The good is bound to arise somewhere, like the lie of evolution. In a way, it sounds like that's the principle of war and peace. If you'll just destroy evil, you can create good. You may not know the answer yet, but just to destroy the evil is good. Let's do evil, that good may come. That's their principle. But that kind of evil never creates good, but just another tyranny, usually worse than the first. Communism doesn't really offer the answer. It only has a theoretical goal, an earthly, utopian, communist heaven on earth. But communism even admits it hasn't reached that yet. Death, too, is not the answer either, but you must die for the people. The most subtle propaganda is the kind where you don't even know you're being propagandized. It even subtly gives you the impression they weren't actually against religion. In fact, communism is a religion in itself. The Soviets are very puritanical, extremely self-righteous and narrow-minded. It is a religion of self-righteousness. They're against any forms of so-called evil. It's like saying you can have a religious experience within yourself without God. Communism even preaches a kind of immortality. Not the literal immortality of the soul, that you will continue to exist as a distinct personality, but that you, according to the good influence you had in the world, your life and the good you've accomplished will live on. You will become immortal according to what part you had in helping to bring about the revolution. Even though you die, the revolution will be a part of you, and you will be a part of the revolution that will live on. That's your immortality. There's an element of truth in that. The immortality of your influence does live on. The Bible teaches that too. You get the impression from the film that the masses must die, that death is no big thing. The main thing is to die for the big thing. One person is not all that important. If you die for the big cause, you will live on in the big cause because your death helped to make the big cause possible. This is the type of immortality that communism preaches, that to die for the revolution is to live on in the people that you have liberated. Your influence lives on. This is true. So they're again imitating of scriptural truth and using it, but they're not going far enough. The Bible says, "No man liveth to himself, and certainly no man dieth to himself." There is one thing everybody has to have that you cannot be without, for it is impossible for you to be without it. Everybody has influence. Whether we live or die, we have some effect on others and the world. How much have we affected others and the world around us in the course of history? In other words, their concept of immortality is that you live on forever in your influence, the influence you had. They're claiming to offer an immortality that is not religious. You don't have to have religion or believe in God to have immortality. You will live on, not in God or in heaven, but you will live on in the people on earth, inasmuch as you have tried to create heaven here for the people. This is what Mao taught. He said, the people are God. That's the cardinal principle of communism. Man is his own God. Self-worship. He said, "They say we are godless and have no God, but our God is you, the people." This is the ultimate in the worship of man, that man is God, and that man is worth living for and dying for. It's just one step from the ultimate truth, almost, but lost. Jesus said, "God is love, and the greatest commandment is to love God, and the next is like unto it." It's almost equal, almost the same, to love your neighbor. Their idea is, we are going to have every part of it, the whole thing. We are going to have religion, but without God. We are going to have as much brotherly love, as much self-sacrificial spirit, as much sharing, as much forsaking all, as much dying for a cause, and creating the ultimate good as you could possibly have, but without God. In other words, we are going to be God. This is the ultimate in blasphemy and rebellion against God. This is the very same thing Satan said to himself, "I will be as the Most High. I don't want to be next to God. I want to be God." What subtleness of propaganda subconsciously implanted in you, its ideals and idealism, and those fundamental principles, without your even being conscious of the fact you're being propagandized. And it's literally by a masterpiece and a mastermind like Tolstoy, who, however, eventually did find his answer in simple faith in God. Death and suffering are a necessity for the greater goal of the revolution. Communism preaches against leaders and leadership. The people are the leaders. The dictatorship of the proletariat, which means the dictatorship of the people. I am the captain of my soul, the master of my fate. You don't have to have leaders. You can be your own leaders. That's what our enemies tell our backsliders and the Jesus people. But this shows you God knows what he is doing, and the devil does nothing but imitate. Get rid of your present leaders and we'll be your leaders is what they really mean. For if communism is going to preach total anarchy to the present regimes and tyrannies, present world leadership, if their doctrine is totally against any leadership, then how are they ever going to have a successful revolution? Anybody but a fool knows, if he's a student of anything at all, that everything has to have a leader. If they preach a doctrine against leadership and leaders, then how are they going to have a successful revolution without leaders? Well, they confess that at the moment they do have to have dictatorship, and they now have to have leaders to bring it about. But they say their goal is total communism, leaderless, lawless, and sinless, in which everybody is equal. Because of the equality of the distribution of wealth, etc., in their future utopia, nobody steals or murders because nobody has any motive for it, so everybody becomes sinless. This is the ultimate religion in communism, a world without law and without leaders and without sin, because, like gods, they have eliminated all the evil. What, then, do they preach for the people to follow? Well, they are not to follow a man or a leader, but all are to agree on a certain ideology, a certain system of thought, a way of thinking, a certain plan. The plan, or the ideology, becomes the leader. Now, they're not just all wrong in that, in a way. We do the same, and say it's all in the Bible and the Mo letters. In other words, you can have this plan without any earthly leaders necessarily being responsible, if you'll all live according to the plan, the ideology, the system of thought, the principle, the divine principle, you might say, although they wouldn't call it divine, but the spiritual principle of their kind of life, of their system of communism. Where do they find this plan? Where do they find true communism? In Marxist, Leninist, and Maoist doctrines, of course. They are trying to prove you find it in no one leader. In their present government, they've set up a tripartite leadership, and there is no longer one great idolized and deified demagogue of the people, no god of the people in a certain leader. They say this is what has been wrong with all the other systems. They've all been led by a man. Our system is not led by a man. Our system is led by a great principle, a great plan, a great system of political thought and economics. What they're really saying is that they're led by a spiritual influence or system, which of course means they have a spiritual leader, the devil, although they would never confess that. They do have a God, and he's Satan, even if they don't know it. Some thoroughly atheistic communists no longer even like Marx, because although Marx claimed not to believe in God, he confessed to what he called the principle of history. He confessed there was a driving force behind history which showed there was a plan for man. He didn't believe in God, but there is something back there, this dialectics of materialism, swinging to one way, then the other, but always coming back to the middle and getting closer to the goal. Marx confessed that there was some plan behind it all, but he denied there was any planner. But there was some kind of a principle, some force. But how can you have a plan without a planner? The most atheistic of communists think that Marx still had a hangover from his former Jewish Christian religion. They say, of course, if you believe there is any plan or design, as logical thinkers, you then must realize there had to be a planner or designer. Therefore, the anti-Marxist communists, who are more on the order of the Maoists, no longer accept Marx en toto as much as they accept Lenin, because Marxism was too religious. He said there was a plan and a design and a driving force of some kind behind history. But if you confess that, you have to confess there is a designer behind the design and a planner behind the plan. This driving force, then, must be an omnipotent power, a God behind history, who must have given a plan and a goal to history, and man is being driven to his ultimate goal whether he likes it or not. But communism says capitalism is going to collapse because it is the design of the design, and communism is going to triumph because it was the plan of the plan. In other words, the plan itself becomes a god, and the design becomes a god which they serve and worship. The principle itself becomes their god. So communism itself becomes their god. The state becomes their god. They then worship and serve the state, which is, of course, they claim, the people. So what they are really doing, they say, is worshipping the people. The people are worth living and dying for, and they're the ultimate goal. People are the answer to people, and people can solve people's problems. If the people could get control and triumph, then the people could solve all the people's own problems. So we're back again to self-worship and the worship of man and his world. So they confess, you have to have some leaders right now to get the plan across, some teachers to teach the teaching. But eventually, when all the people know the teaching and have all graduated and school is over, who needs the teachers? Everyone will be taught and all will know, and none shall say unto his neighbor, Know the Lord, for all shall know me. See what a mimicry of God's truth it is. In the end, in other words, by my Spirit you'll all be taught, and will have no further need that any man teach you, for all shall know me. Everyone will then know the plan and become part of the plan and find his place in the plan. So what they are really saying is this: we have the plan, and we have the system of teaching that will save the world. We have the gospel, the good news of the truth that man can save himself if he will just get together and try. Man, get on the ball, get it together, get with it, work together, fight together, and you'll solve all your own problems. Save yourself. Get rid of your present leadership, the evil, corrupt system, the evil, corrupt leaders of the system, and accept ours instead. Get rid of all the old and hire the new. We once had Marx, but we no longer need Marx because we have Marxism. We once had Lenin. Lenin is gone, but we still need Leninism, which is helping us to bring about Marxism. Do you understand the difference? Marxism is the plan. Leninism is how to put the plan into effect. how to bring about the plan. But eventually we will need neither Marx nor Lenin, nor those who teach us Marxism or Leninism, because all will know and be part of the plan. All opponents and enemies will have been liquidated, all the evil will have been crushed and eliminated, and only the good will be left, the common people and the plan. And the people, since now they have become part of the plan, will no longer need planners nor leaders, but they themselves will be the plan, a kingdom of hell on earth. But of course, as they get closer and closer to that goal, they are going to find in the end that they need one last leader to really and truly unite them all into the plan, and to be like the spirit of the plan. All of these other so-called man-made religions, including Christianity, will have to be totally eliminated and replaced by the plan, communism, or the final anti-God government of the Antichrist and his religion of self-worship. Because the people will have to believe in something, they will have to have them worship not only the plan, but since it is man's weakness to need to embody the plan in a personality, they will have to give them some personality who symbolizes and embodies the plan, who is like the spirit of the plan that they can follow. In worshipping him, they'll be persuaded they're not really worshipping the man, but the plan. And of course, it will be whom? The Antichrist. The whole idea was stolen straight from the Bible and from God, because his is the ideal plan. The only problem is, who is behind it? Which planner? The devil is engineering this new plan, you see, and he is working toward the ultimate goal of having the world worship him. But he got this plan from somebody else, because the principle is God's. There is a plan, but like their plan, though they deny a planner, they have a planner, and almost confess it, even as Marx confesses it in his Design of History, implying a designer. He confesses there is a plan, and indirectly admits there is, therefore, some kind of a planner. The Bible openly confesses there is a plan and a planner, a design and a designer, and that it is for the people, and the ultimate goal is the good of the people, and the abolition of evil, and the evil leaders, and the evil systems by the people. Not just their leaders, but everybody. Every individual person can have this particular experience of conversion to the plan and conversion to the spirit of the plan, and be no longer controlled by man or man's leaders, but controlled by the spirit or divine principle of the plan, individually controlled, every one by the spirit of the plan, every man his own priest, every man his own king, his own leader, because he's controlled by the spirit